and I'd like to call the meeting to order now. If you would look at your screen, we have a picture of a flag, and at this time we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Staff, could you please do the roll call?
Yes, sir. Chair Harden?
Here.
Director Knight?
Here.
Thank you. Director McLean? Director Mechanic?
Here.
Director Overman? Director Schisler?
Here.
And Director Williams.
Here.
You do have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, I'll ask Julia Mandel with the HART General Counsel to read the rules for committee participation.
Yes, Chair Harden, I'm going to go ahead and shorten it just because I think everybody here has already heard most of the rules, but I'm just going to read the part that we need to have into the record. Thank you for your participation in this virtual meeting. The change of meeting location from in-person HART Administrative Office to a virtual meeting is pursuant to Executive Order Number 2179, extending Executive Order 20-69 by the Governor of the State of Florida and Section 120.54 Florida statutes. Due to social distancing, the boardroom in the e-board administrative office is only accessible for personnel facilitating the meeting. Please keep your devices and phones muted during this meeting. And if you want to make a comment, please raise the hand button. The hand button will turn blue when activated. Staff will read the hands raised in the order for chair to acknowledge that and the participant may unmute device. Presenters, please note the presentation will be controlled by HART staff. Ensure you state your name, title, company, or organization for the record, and say next slide when needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle, is anybody registered for public comment?
There was no one registered to speak, but I do have a comment to read into the record.
Okay. Please proceed.
Thank you. To Commissioner Mary Ella Smith, Chair of the HART Executive Board and the constituency of the HART Executive Board, I want to express my gratitude to Commissioners Leslie Les Miller for his stellar leadership serving as the Chair of the HART Executive Board, and the community of District 3, ATU Local 1593 says, well done, thank you. I am sending this letter to explain how ATU has been dealing with this pandemic crisis since April 1, 2020. We have had several operators, motormen, and mechanic folks test positive for COVID-19. We have had 3 operators hospitalized on the respirator, and 2 of them are still out of work. ATU has shown up to work every day to move the people around the city to enhance their daily lives. From our paratransit division, we have continued to serve the community when others refused, transported to dialysis, Florida Cancer Center, nursing homes, and various hospitals. ATU members are the frontline employees. We could have been exposed to COVID-19 by coming to work yesterday. We thank Mrs. Carolyn House Stewart. She made it once a week to the driver's lounge to express her gratitude to all the frontline staff. We have self-quarantined from our families during this pandemic due to we don't know if we are exposed. ATU International President Mr. John Costa went to Washington, D.C. with his legislative team and fought for public transportation to be part of the CARES Act package, which will go into history as one of the largest pieces of legislature ever signed into law and contains $25 billion for transit. HART received $39.9 million. ATU frontline staff went to work daily with no hazardous pay, hours reduced, and worked different shifts to enhance the people's lives we move around this city. Maintenance has been working around the clock to clean and sanitize all HART vehicles and facilities while working with a skeleton crew. Thank you, Scott Drainville, Chief of Maintenance. We are asking that this board take into consideration of what the HART management team is presenting to you today, Essential Workers Bonus. Letitia Jones, ATU Local 1593 President. That concludes public comment.
Thank you. At this time, I would consider comments on the minutes from the August 17th virtual meeting, and if there are none, I'd look for a first and second to approve them, please.
Schiffler move to adopt.
I'll second.
Would you call the roll, please, Danielle?
Yes, sir. Chair Harden?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director McLean? Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to a first reading of the HART board policy revisions. And Julie, if you could introduce it, and Cindy, if you could give the presentation, please.
This is Julia Manzel. By way of background, these are policy changes that have been brought and sent forward from board action. This is constituting the first hearing of those board policy changes. There's a number of changes that are coming before you. I believe Cindy is going to discuss the first one, and I think there's a few that I will also need to discuss.
Thank you. Cindy, you're recognized. Ms. Stiglich.
Thank you. For the record, Cindy Stiglich, interim CFO for HART. So the first policy is the travel policy, and the original policy only contained 3 sections: purpose, authorizations, and advancements. And we felt that we needed to actually expand the board policy to delineate the regulations that we do not want staff to be able to stray from or definitely needed to rise to the level of the board. So what we've done is added some sections, revised the purpose, and I can go through each one if you'd like. Section 1, we have restated the purpose to include the policy for authorization and what travelers need to do while they're conducting HART business. We've added a general policy section, that's section 2, again, talking about expenses that will be prepaid, reimbursed, or a combination thereof, allowing that no per diem meal allowance be paid or lodging paid within the MSA, which is the metropolitan service area, which is Pasco, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Polk, and Manatee counties. We removed the old section of advancements. We did talk about that again in our regular SOP, but we've removed that from the board policy. We've added a new section 3, which is the authorization. It's the same as we had before for the CEO and board members, but for all their employees, we've changed the authorization from CEO to the head of their department. We've added section 4, which is reimbursement of expenses. Again, making sure that we are following GSA and Florida state statutes, specifically 112.061. We also listed what we will not reimburse, and you'll notice alcoholic beverages being at the top. We just wanted to make sure that all employees were aware of what we will and will not reimburse as part of their travel. We've added section 5, which is public lodging. Rates will be in accordance with GSA for the cost in that area where they're traveling. We've added section 6, traveling abroad, essentially saying that passports, visas, and shots are all reimbursable. We've added section 7, disability, to accommodate the special needs of the traveler. Sufficient, documentation is required, but we want to make sure that those that need different accommodations are given those. We've added section 8, conflicts in provision. Again, we're making sure that we want to put in our policy that Florida state statute 112.061 will prevail over the policy, if there is a question. And then we've, again, put in another section, Section 9, just for all other rules and regulations, going back to the original purpose, which is the CEO and/or the CEO's designees shall establish the reasonable rules and regulations for travel consistent with the federal and state laws. So we've actually expanded our policy from the original. And that's all I have.
Okay, Ms. Mandel, question, point of order here. So this is, my understanding, is the actual official first reading. And then it goes to the board for a second reading, at which point they're adopted. So do we actually have to have a formal first reading, or just is the summary sufficient for us to open discussion and take action?
Well, what's been presented to you is part of your it's like a first reading discussion point. So you need to discuss the policy as it's been brought forward to you, and we'll do this for all of them. Then what you'll do from there is if you want to make any changes, it's appropriate to make those changes now, and then you can send it on to the full board for the quote second reading with those revisions. But once it gets to that point, it gets a little bit more complicated to make changes. So now is kind of part of the time to go ahead and make those changes, or if you're comfortable with the language as it stands. And again, this is for all of the policies.
That said, I open the floor to discussion with the understanding that this is the official first reading, and that these items then go forward to the board for a second reading, at which point they're adopted.
Correct.
Chair Harden, there are no hands raised.
Okay, with nobody willing to, or nobody wanting to make a comment or discussion, do we have a motion for approval in a second?
Scheffler, move to forward the changes to the full board for the second reading and discussion at that point.
Williams, second.
Would you please call the roll, Danielle?
Absolutely, Chair Harden.
Yes.
Director Mechanic,
Yes.
Director Knight,
Yes.
Director Overman,
Yes.
Director Schisler,
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to committee action item 5, to authorize a one-time payment to HART employees governed by collective bargaining agreement in the amount of $1,500 per employee. And is there a staff presentation on this? No. Crystal Humby is recognized.
Thank you. This is Crystal Hunley, the Interim Chief People Officer for HART. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to present great uncertainty and risk, particularly for frontline workers and their families. HART frontline essential workers, ATU, and Teamsters have demonstrated adaptability, agility, and commitment to our community over the last 8 months. Our dedicated employees are the very example of the many industries that could not step back from their responsibilities and never stopped returning for duty in person. Since March 2020, in accordance with CDC guidelines as well as local and state health departments, HART took extraordinary steps to help reduce the spread of COVID-19. ATU 1593 members delivered over 3.5 million essential trips since March 2020. HART employees disinfect the fleet, transit centers, amenities, and work areas daily. As of September, buses were disinfected a total of over 18,000 times, over 19,000 hours total spent on facility disinfecting, and almost 10,000 hours spent disinfecting vehicles. Operations staff closely monitored ridership daily to implement in-the-moment solutions for safe rider capacities. Over 15,000 masks have been distributed to riders and members of our community at transit and transfer centers. ATU hours were adjusted to ensure 40-hour work weeks, which meant that schedules were frequently irregular, leaving it difficult for these employees to plan for themselves and their loved ones. It is our recommendation to recognize our bargaining employees monetarily for their dedication in this meaningful way. Thank you.
Thanks for the presentation. Do we have any discussion by the committee?
Yeah, Schussler, I got a question.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't even begin to say thank you to the drivers and to the motormen, to everybody involved with keeping HART running and operational during the time period. And $1,500 bonus probably doesn't even come close, but I'm sure it would help. So I don't want my question to be misunderstood as being anything negative. It's just that we have the fiduciary responsibility to be able to afford the payment. So my question is to Ms. Stiglich, and I doubt she's got the answer, although she might, is what is the year-to-date variance? Even going back to the previous fiscal year, what's the year-to-date variance on actual salaries and related to the budget? In other words, can we absorb this fully within that potential variance, or are we going to, I know you said you're not making a budget adjustment recommendation now, but can that absorb most of the variance or most of this impact?
Director Hart, am I recognized?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Ms. Stiglich, you're recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Stiglich, interim CFO for HART. So that is what I am proposing, that this FY21 budget be evaluated to determine if we need to do a budget amendment later on in the year. I do believe that we will be able to absorb this payment, which is approximately $1.2 million once it is fully allocated. And at this point, when I'm looking at the way in which our FY20 will end, we are still in the process of closing FY20. I was very, I say pleased, because I don't believe in previous years we've ever come in where our expenses are under budget. And if you recall, back through the summer when I was presenting to the board the budget, we were estimating that we would be over in our personnel expenses, primarily due to overtime that was at 100% spent within the first 5 months of FY20. However, as I look at the preliminary year end, it appears as though we are about $1.5 million under budget in FY20 for our expenses, and that is attributed to the way in which we needed to modify the way we provided service in the last 2 quarters of FY20. So not only do I believe that our FY21 budget can probably absorb this cost, but based on the CARES Act, the way in which we were able to use the CARES Act in FY20, based on the fact that we did receive some unanticipated revenues through both that CARES Act as well as the CNG rebate or refund in FY20, has positioned us to the point where our reserves are healthier than they've ever been. So because of the value that this will have to those essential frontline workers, I think we can certainly substantiate and warrant this payment, and we will just continue to monitor the budget as we go through the first and second quarter, but I believe we can absorb it.
Thank you, Ms. Stiglich. Well, in that case, I heartily recommend approval and moving it to the full board.
Williams, second.
Question.
Yes, you're recognized.
Okay. I'd like to know how many employees will that cover out of the total? How many union employees and how many out of the total?
The payment will go to our bargaining unit employees, which include both the ATU and the Teamsters. It's 653 employees. out of our total population, which is, I believe is a little under 800.
Well, my thing is, I agree with that, but is it some way we could do to cover the others? Being that, there is and they have worked real hard. So my concern with the other workers that, that it cover all. Is there any way we can look at that or, what you feel on, for the other 100 plus?
To recognize Ms.
on that decision, we did have an executive leadership meeting, but I'll defer to Ruthie on answering for that.
Okay.
You recognize Ruthie.
Thank you, sir. Just for the reference, we moved with acknowledging the service of the ATU employees and the Teamster employees because they're the frontline employees that really have been the strong presence for this agency out in the community. The balance of the employees, of the non-bargaining employees, under consideration was that some of these employees, because we did staggered schedules and work from home policies that we established as a result of COVID, we felt that while, yes, we very much appreciated the hard work, they certainly were not under the same, if you will, set of circumstances that our frontline employees were under. But the pleasure of this board is how we will manage that moving forward.
Okay. I agree with the increase, with the award.
Does anybody else have comments, or do we have a motion to recommend approval to the full board and move it to the full board?
Chair Harden, there are no further hands up, but there is a motion made by Director Schisler and seconded by Director Williams.
Would you call the roll, please?
Absolutely. Chair Harden?
Yes.
Director Mechanic?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Director Williams?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. And if I might, Chair Harden, could we have our general counsel please clarify exactly what policies, by reading the exact policy names out for the record, that received the first reading for the future, to ensure that we have and see if there's any objections from the committee about proceeding with those to a second reading?
Yes, I can go ahead and do that because there was, and that is a very good point, Danielle, there were several policies that were on the agenda for approval. The first policy that was discussed, I think in the most amount of detail, was policy 120.05 travel policy. The additional policies that were brought forward to you for amendment were 120 general organization of HART, which was also discussed. The next one was 140 duties and functions of staff, specifically subsection 2, which discussed bidders and proposers for issuance of award and reflected those changes in the procedures of the procurement manual. The next one was 140 duties and functions of staff, Chief Executive Officer 140.2, which was part of a discussion I think you all may have had with Mr. Smith about clarifying the role of general counsel and the duties of general counsel. Specifically, that discussed that the general counsel reports directly to the chair and the board. The next section that is proposed to be amended is 140.0.3, specifically related to general counsel. That policy will make clear the responsibilities of general counsel as it relates to day-to-day operations at HART, and that such matters were within the purview of the in-house staff. An additional set forth what happens if there's a situation where the general counsel and the CEO cannot agree, that decision would be made by the board as to how to proceed forward with a legal matter. The next section that was revised, go down to it, I think, okay, the next section relates to 210.06, which is, we discussed previously, related to communication media technology or telephone participation, and that has been amended to provide the opportunity for CMT hybrid meetings where not all members need to be in attendance, although, as we previously discussed, it does require a physical quorum present after the executive order of the governor is no longer in place. The next section is 430.01, drug and alcohol free workplace policy, and that particular policy is being revised in order to deal with certain additional requirements. And let me just see if there are any ones I need to read into the record. I believe that might be it. Danielle, did I get all of them? I believe I did.
I know you mentioned a section of the procurement manual, but the procurement manual itself had updates, correct?
Let me see what's in front of you. There are provisions in the procurement manual that do have revisions. All of those revisions were the ones that related directly to the Carlton Fields recommendations, and I wasn't sure. There we go. Yes, the procurement manual revisions that are also in your packet, those I believe have been discussed with you previously, and those, as I said, are directly from the recommendations of Carlton Fields. I know we had a bigger discussion on the procurement manual, but only those matters which related to the Carlton Fields recommendations are brought forward. The rest will, I believe, be part of additional conversations. And I think that does it.
Yes, that satisfies staff's request. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, great. Any old business? New business? Hearing none, thanks everybody for your patience today. Sorry this thing stretched out, and the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Have a good day.